second half.
Here comes Gooden gonna score the 2 and 1.
Full drive inside. Stop. Hang on a pivot. Turnaround jump shot is good.
Jordan Battle with a nice spin move. Kicks it down low. Fardon, Big Maple with the finish.
What's up, everybody? Outta WAC podcast episode. It is Sunday night, so we'll say Sunday night. We're going to put this out on Sunday night. But holy cow, the 2022-23 season is upon us. We are less than, I'm going to say, 18 hours away from tip-off of the 2022-23 season. The New Mexico State women tip off the WAC Hoops season at Colorado, noon Mountain Time. I believe it's going to be on the Pac-12 network for head coach Jody Adams' first game as the Aggie head coach. Gosh, Chelsea, Daryl, as always, I'm so pumped that it's finally here. Like, let's get it's game on now, right? Like, oh, everybody else should be excited. If you notice, Daryl is wearing his WAC Hoops shirt. I'm assuming that Chelsea is wearing her WAC Hoops shirt, and I've got my WAC Hoops Digest shirt. Check out the store in the description, in the link below. Good stuff. Always repping the WAC Hoops. Guys, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. I'm not going to lie. Like, it is awesome that it's finally here.
It feels kind of like Christmas Eve when you were a kid and you're waiting for Santa Claus to slide down the chimney. You know, that like 3 or 4 hour period where you can't sleep before midnight on Christmas Eve. And then you finally sleep, and then it's like, oh, wow, wait a minute. It's 7 a.m. Christmas morning.
I don't know about you, but I don't sleep in until 7 a.m. on Christmas morning. I mean, at least as a kid, I didn't. Let's put it that way. As a kid, I was awake at like 4 or 5 in the morning, like, Mom and Dad, let's get going. Now, as I'm older in my 40th year, I don't tend to wake up as early anymore. So, yeah, that's a little depressing, but it is what it is. Gosh, it feels like it was just yesterday that we were sitting and talking with Julie Goodenough from Abilene Christian, Brett Tanner I had on, just we did all our season previews. Like, does it feel like the last 2.5 months have just kind of flown by, or has it been kind of slow for both of you?
No, it's gone by really fast, and we've been doing all the prepping and doing other sports, and now finally it's basketball season, which is the best time of the year. So, no, I agree. I think it went by super quick.
Yeah, it's there's not much more to say about the fact that it's opening day tomorrow. Technically, if I look at my phone, I believe there was actually one men's basketball game today. I'm going to look. I thought it's maybe not. Oh, no, they didn't put it on there. So I thought there was supposed to be one today. I swear ESPN had one today. But anyways, let's get started. Some big games on both the men's and the women's side. There's some Power 6 games. We're going to kind of leave those out for right now. We love those matchups, and hopefully, Tarleton or Sam Houston or UTRGV, somebody can pull off an upset. I don't know that it's going to happen on opening night on the men's side. On the women's side, we have some matchups. I don't know that New Mexico State's going to go to Colorado. I don't even think it's going to be competitive because the Lady Buffs are coming off an NCAA tournament appearance. They lost to Stanford in the Pac-12 championship, and they have some players back on their squad. So we're going to focus a little bit more on maybe the 50-50 games, at least on the men's side for me. Chelsea and Daryl may have some games they're looking at. There are some doubleheaders on opening day. We mentioned in the article on WAC Hoops Digest, but Stephen F. Austin has one. California Baptist has one. Abilene Christian has one. Actually, Abilene Christian does not have one because the Wildcats, I don't believe, open up the season for another 2 days. I'm going to look right now. Just so I'm clear, Chelsea and Daryl, what do you think is a game that you want to look at, that you want to talk about first on the women's side?
I'll start with CBU and UCSD at the CBU event center. That'll be a 2 o'clock tip-off Pacific time on ESPN Plus with Pep Fernandez on the call. A new look CBU squad after the graduations of Harper, Palma's transferring over to GCU, Oleda graduating, Thomas, that whole class graduating, takes the floor for the first time in 22-23 against a UCSD squad that's in I believe it's the third year of their transition to Division I in the Big West. And let's not forget, guys, in that year where they won the WAC tournament in 2021, UCSD actually had CBU down by, I think it was 2 at the half before a COVID testing issue cropped up and caused that game to be postponed. I'm really interested to see how Trinity San Antonio takes on an expanded role scoring, and I want to see how the new additions work together in that first time on the floor. Kehoe, Barrington, the two biggest ones that pop to my mind.
Yeah, I mean, you think about that, what Jared Olson lost. I mean, when you look at that schedule from 2020-21, I mean, they went 14-0 in WAC play, 26-1. Their only loss of the season was in the Women's National Invitational Tournament at Rice, in Fort Worth against Rice to end their season. And, Ane Oleda, like you said, Caitlin Harper, Brittany Thomas, Sydney Palma, like you said, she moved over to GCU, which Chelsea would know about and probably has a big smile on her face as we're talking about this. I know Molly Miller is a huge fan of Sid Palma, and her parents, I believe, is it her parents? Both of them are GCU grads. Is that right?
I'm not sure about her dad, but I know her mom played women's basketball at GCU, and that's why Sydney Palma switched to number 10 this year. That's what her mom wore when she was a lope, too. So I saw a picture that she recreated of her mom, like the same stance. And yeah, they look very similar. They're very similar players, 3-point oriented. So that's a good story. I think there's an interview coming out very soon that one of my coworkers did with her and her family. So it should be a very good story that'll come out soon on the GCU socials.
Awesome. But back to that CBU game, Daryl. What are you looking for in it? I know you mentioned, seeing how the roster gels. Is there something else that fans need to keep an eye on? We know Trinity San Antonio had a really good summer and off season. She got to go play with Puerto Rico this summer. The Puerto Rican national team, just anything you're looking for specifically out of that game?
How, who's going to handle the scoring load behind Trinity? And then B, how this roster is going to do defensively. We all know Jared Olson teams can score. We all know they like to shoot the three-pointer at a pretty good clip. But the issue last year was, can they stop people? And that's going to be the first thing I look for, is what kind of tempo is this game going to be played at? And can they stop UCSD, and can they, keep the Tritons offense under control? Because UCSD in the Big West did do some pretty good things last year.
Yeah, so last year when the two teams met down at is that RIMAC Arena in San Diego, UC San Diego actually led 37-31 at the break, and California Baptist won by a point, 74-73. I'm interested, like you said, the newcomers. We'll see what happens. Chelsea, you got any thoughts on that game? I want to say it's a 50-50 game because it's a mid-major against a mid-major. And we like those games, and those games are important for WAC schools, especially when it comes to seeding. And it's also a home game, which makes it even more important. You have to win at home.
Well, I think what I'm most interested in, and Daryl already kind of touched on it, is Trinity San Antonio. I think this is going to be her year, especially now that she's been really more handed the reins of that team. And I think that this game, as you mentioned, it's pretty important. I mean, not only is it the season opener, but like you said, it's against another mid-major. It really could go either way. I think that's going to be a really early tell of how much coach really trusts in her play and how much she really will be handed the reins of this team, because I think she could absolutely be a star. And I've been saying that since the beginning of last season when she was playing behind multiple players. I thought she was really, really impressive. And now that she's potentially the star of that offense, we'll see how it ends up turning out.
Yeah, and we're going to stay on the California Baptist Lancers because they have a doubleheader. It might be the most – I don't want to say it's the biggest game on the slate because I still think Utah Valley, Utah State's the biggest game on the slate because it's an in-state game. But then again, the California Baptist men host an in-state opponent that is what, Daryl, 50 minutes away from Riverside? Is that right, where Long Beach State is?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Maybe an hour and some change, depending on the traffic on a Monday. But yeah, that's a big game for the WAC, and it's a big game for the Lancers. This much ballyhooed recruiting class of Rick Croy that we all think is the best class he's had since the Lancers made the move to Division One. Can they start off the 22-23 year, their first year eligible for the tournament, with a bang and knock off a conference champion in Long Beach State from 22-23?
Yeah, and I don't know what the mascot is. It's not the Dirtbags. It's not the 49ers anymore. What is the Long Beach State mascot? Do they just go by the state? Is that all that they – I've tried looking it up, and I can't find anything.
Well, they changed it from the Dirtbags to the Sharks like 2 years, sometime during the pandemic or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll just call them Long Beach State. Anyways, yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens. California Baptist, both teams, well, all of their teams, athletic teams, are now eligible for the NCAA tournament in their various sports, which is huge after that 4-year transition. Jared Olson was kind of hoping, that he had the team 2 years ago, the team now that he had 2 years ago, so that they could, go to the NCAA tournament this year. But on the men's side, I think the line, if I remember right, was 3.5, 4.5. I'm looking it up here on my ESPN app that's frozen now. Sorry, guys. I'm not prepared for a second. So the line right now is CBU minus 4.5 per Caesars Sportsbook. It's the smallest line of any WAC school on opening night. I'm very interested to see how Taron Armstrong handles the length. There's some athleticism on that Long Beach roster. We know he struggled a little bit with it last year as a freshman. We'll see how the growth has come along. But you're right, Daryl. This is probably the best roster combination that Rick Croy's had with, and not just the starters and maybe the 5 or 6 guys, the whole it's depth that the Lancers have this year. And I'm very interested to see how it all plays out. Talking to Braden Bell, the voice of the Lancers, there are some surprises with regard to like roster depth and who, I don't want to say it, I guess we could say too deep on a football depth chart. Like on the depth chart, there's some surprises that are going to come out. People will see that they probably, that I wasn't expecting when Braden told me. Trey Armstrong's a little bit down on the depth chart, which is surprising because he's one of the leading scorers last year. So we'll see. It's a big one for the Lancers if they want to make a statement that say we're here to stay. Let's be real. That's a huge game for Rick Croy and CBU to get off on the right foot. It's not because Long Beach State is high in the net. It's not because they're off the charts in the Ken Palm ranking. It's a home game against a conference regular season champion. And CBU doesn't go on the road very much at all this year in the non-conference. So they have to win these 50-50 games to boost their seeding when it comes to WAC Vegas. I mean, that's the biggest key with these non-conference games, both on the men's and the women's side, is they have to win games that are 50-50 games. And if they pull off an upset, that helps them even more. But right now, those 50-50 games are – so both the women and the men of CBU have to win these home games that they have this weekend. Or not this weekend. I'm sorry, it's Sunday. I've been watching football all day trying to get ready for this, but on opening night tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, and what I like about this game is Rick Croy challenged and Jared Olson challenged their kids right out of the bat. They didn't play a D3 or a D2, a non-D1 game like some others. Chelsea, the GCU women are starting out with a pair of non-D1s in the exhibition, and Arizona Christian. I know sometimes it has to happen, but I don't like the feel of it. But I love that Rick Croy and Jared Olson are challenging their teams right out of the gate.
Yeah, I think that was a big emphasis for them when they scheduled this year. Both of them was to keep. The thing is, they also have the money that they can pay for those bye games, which helps to where they can pay people to come to Riverside and play. So it'll be a big night in Riverside. Big night. Daryl will be there. Follow him on Twitter. You know, we're just that's an exciting time for the Lancers and Lancer Nation. Chelsea, we'll just mention the GCU women. Daryl already mentioned them playing the non-D1 in Arizona Christian. Maybe a good opportunity for them to get some chemistry going. We already saw them in their exhibition, which they won big. But you know, there's some new faces there that Molly Miller's got to deal with. So there's an opportunity there for some growth. I mean, I feel like that's what the non-D1 games are for, is to get some reps for players and then get players that probably won't play reps as well in case you need that depth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the exhibition last week, all 13 active Lopes ended up playing, and that was also a game where Tiara Brown, who's arguably one of the best players on that team, didn't play at all. And all 13 of those Lopes scored. So it was a great, practice, an exhibition. And I think tomorrow will be really similar. Historically, GCU has blown out Arizona Christian in the last couple years, but I think that's expected. Arizona Christian's an NAIA school, just from a little bit north of GCU, so not a far trip there, but I digress. GCU is obviously the better team. I don't think it's a question of if they win. I think it's a question of how they win. And if Coach Miller ends up putting in all of the active Lopes again, and how they perform, because definitely they were looking a little bit rusty at the beginning of the exhibition. They had a lot of issues passing, and they didn't immediately have a great shooting percentage. So I think if they can improve that out of the gate, this team should be really good, and it'll be another great practice run for the real competition going through the rest of the season.
I want to say that GCU women should be 5-0 going into that November 30th matchup against Arizona State. I'm looking at the schedule right now. They got Arizona Christian tomorrow in their season opener. Grambling State on Saturday in Phoenix. They go to Nicholls State November 18th. Then they host the GCU Thanksgiving Classic. They play North Dakota and they play Lindenwood. And then they have that November 30th, which is a Wednesday matchup against Arizona State. So I really think that the Lady Lopes, GCU, I don't know just Lopes, I guess, should be 5-0 undefeated going into that Arizona State matchup. I'm just going to throw that out there right now.
I agree. I think that they're better than all the teams that they're going against. I think for any of them to get an upset, it would take a really bad shooting game or a really bad rebounding game. And I haven't looked at the rosters for a lot of the teams they're going against going into that ASU game, but I think they probably have the height advantage for the most part, especially now that they actually do have some true post players, because last year that was a struggle. But that was something they did struggle with in their first game. The Mustangs of Western New Mexico had a 6'4" player that was just completely out-rebounding the entire GCU roster. So if they want to win convincingly tomorrow and win the rest of those games before the ASU one, they're absolutely going to have to work on their rebounding. And that was something that Coach Miller said in the post-game interview, was that she's absolutely going to have them work on boxing out, because it just wasn't happening. And I don't know if it was because of rust. I don't know if it was because they thought they were better, or if it really was just not having a height advantage against that roster, but it should have been better than it was.
Something to keep an eye on in the GCU women's basketball season opener. The tip-off time is 4 p.m. I got to call it Mountain Time now because we're back on the same time frame due to daylight savings. So 4 p.m. Mountain on ESPN Plus for the GCU women. We're going to talk about the GCU men now. They have a big game too. Montana State, Big Sky regular season champions, Big Sky tournament champions, went to the NCAA tournament last year. Yes, they lose point guard Xavier Bishop, but they have some ballers up there in Montana. I think this is more of an intriguing matchup because GCU, a lot of time, I don't want to say a lot of times, most of their home games outside of a few are usually cupcakes, and this is not a cupcake. And it's to start the season for the preseason favorite to win the WAC, according to multiple media outlets. This is a big game for GCU, and I mean, I think the Lopes win because it's at GCU Arena. The Havocs will create a chaotic, atmosphere that I don't think Montana State's probably played in a whole lot. But, man, it's Javon Blackshear, Rayshawn Harrison looked really good in the exhibition. They got to get that third score figured out. Noah Bauman's got to come – he's got to shoot it better in the season opener than he did in that exhibition. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. If they get that third score, they're going to be fine. But that's the only big concern I have for GCU. Who's the third score? Because they didn't have it last year consistently. They had Holland Woods. They had Javon. Who's going to be that third score? So that's what I'm watching in that game.
Yeah, I like Gabe McLaughlin too, potentially for their third scorer. He's occasionally inconsistent, but I feel like if he can get more consistent, he hits three-pointers really well, and so does Walter Ellis if he gets more minutes. So I think they do have a lot of guys that are capable of being that third scorer. I just think they didn't show it in that exhibition.
Yeah, I think there's capabilities there too. I agree. I 100% agree with you. I got to see it. We got to see it. Everybody knows it's there. Everybody knows the capabilities are there. We got to see it. And if they can get that third score, if they can get it consistently, they will be hard to beat, period, at all. I mean, and they just got news that when they go to the High Plains in December, the preseason Mountain West Player of the Year is out. He won't be playing in that game. So there's chances for the GCU men to do stuff, but it all starts tomorrow night. Tip-off is at 7 p.m., I believe. I want to just confirm that because obviously there's a women's game before. Yes, 7 p.m. Mountain Time on ESPN Plus. Big-time game, Montana State at GCU. Reigning Big Sky champs taking on the preseason favorite to win the WAC. So that's a big one.
Kyle,
go ahead, Darryl.
Kyle, for me, that's another one. You got to give, Brian Thornton and Drew Sperot made the call to schedule better. I think Bryce Drew definitely and staff answered the call by scheduling that game.
Yeah, I 100%. I agree with you because they have to. Yeah, they want to get that higher seed. It's not necessarily how you do in WAC play. Some of your seeding is going to be dependent on how you do in your non-conference, and especially home games. If you lose a home game, that's a bigger hit than if you lose on the road. And because GCU has so many home games, like CBU, they have to win the home games, period. I'm going to stick with that because if they don't win the home games, they're going to get passed up by teams that go on the road and lose. Sorry, that's just my take from what I've seen in the seeding system. And, yeah, so I agree with you, Darryl. They went out and scheduled well. Now they got to back it up with what they decided to do. Let's turn our attention. There's a couple other women's games. I know we got UTSA going to Stephen F. Austin. That's a doubleheader too because their men play a non-D1 later that evening. UTA, they host Texas Southern. One of the games I'm interested in is New Mexico at Southern Utah. Tracy Sanders and the newcomer SUU host a Mountain West Conference opponent at America First, Event Center. Which one do you guys want to talk about first? We could focus on UTA and the fact that they struggled in their exhibition. I don't get, like I said, we talked about this pre-recording. I don't like to give credence to exhibition games because I feel like they're glorified scrimmages, but if UTA doesn't clean up the rebounding issue and the free throw shooting, they're going to struggle. And I think Sharika Wright probably will feel the same way if she saw this. What do you guys look for from the Lady Mavs in their opener against Texas Southern? Let's start there.
Yeah, you said, when you posted how tight that game was on Twitter, I turned the stat monitor on because I was on my way to work, and I was keeping an eye on it down the stretch. Yes, the UTA has to clean up the rebounding. You can't be minus, 14, 13-ish against a non-D1 and expect to do well in the WAC. I'm sorry, that's calling it like it is, as my old middle school science teacher used to say. It's November the 7th. I mean, they're going to fix that before we get to WAC play just after Christmas. I have no doubt. But starting out the gate being minus 13 rebounding in your exhibition is not a good impression coming into a new conference.
Yeah, Chelsea, go ahead with your thought.
Honestly, I was a little disappointed. I mean, I think that, based on their previous seasons before joining the WAC, I think that they're going to be one of the heavy hitters in the conference going forward for women's basketball. And I think that them playing the way that they did, and especially as you mentioned, rebounding being such a huge problem, was kind of disappointing. I mean, I was expecting a lot more from this team. And obviously the media and the coaches were too, based on how the voting went. And to see them kind of flail a little bit against the team I think they really should have dominated was kind of surprising. I really thought they were going to come in guns blazing, ready for WAC competition, and now I'm not sure how their play is going to translate in this new conference. But it is just an exhibition game, so it's hard to make that call now. So, their next game is going to be a huge one to prove to the rest of the conference that they are still here, that they're still competitive.
Yeah, and that's the hard thing. Like, maybe they weren't focused, maybe they weren't ready. I don't know. Because, it didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. It's like I said, a glorified practice. Now, if they go and dominate the boards against a Division I opponent tomorrow night in their season opener, do we say, oh, yeah, they got it fixed from practice, from that exhibition game? Or do we say, well, this is the UTA team that we expected? So that's it's such an interesting dynamic with the exhibition games and regular season games. And but yeah, hopefully they cleaned it up in practice. Hopefully they got it, figured out. College Park Center tomorrow night will be good. Should be a good game between Texas Southern and UTA. Tip-off is 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on ESPN Plus for that one. Like I said, New Mexico, Southern Utah, Tracy Sanders and the T-Birds, first year in the WAC, host the Mountain West Conference opponent. I think some people are underestimating the T-Birds. We talked a lot about them. And I'm not just saying this on the women's side, on the men's side too. Both the men, that's crazy. The men are playing at New Mexico while the women are hosting New Mexico. So maybe they get a double beatdown of the Lobos. We'll see what happens. But any other games you guys are looking forward to on the women's side? We're going to clean up. We're going to maybe finish up with one more men's game that we'll talk about here.
I want to hit on the Southern Utah UNM game really quick. This is a team that GCU played in the WNIT last year, a historically strong Mountain West program that tends to, compete for the conference regular season title and the tournament title. They like to shoot the three ball. So this is going to be telling for Southern Utah. We got to see how well they're going to do defending the perimeter, because we know that a lot of the WAC teams, CBU mainly, A1 likes to shoot the three ball. So I want to see how Tracy Sanders and company defend UNM on the three, and how they take care of the ball against UNM, who sped up GCU in that WNIT game last year.
Yeah, so that was a 92-72 beatdown by New Mexico. Sorry, Chelsea. We can't deny that. That was, wow. I'm looking at the stats, 92-72. New Mexico hit 14 three-pointers in that game. And here's the crazy stat. And Chelsea, we can talk about this. That's what killed GCU in the last two WAC tournament championship games, was the three-pointer. Like, CBU knocked down a ton. SFA last year knocked down a ton. That, like you said, Daryl, if SUU is going to beat New Mexico, they have to protect the perimeter, because they will get shot out of that America First Event Center. I'm very interested to see how the T-Birds handle that shooting ability. And, New Mexico was, what was it? I just pulled it up here. 26-10 last year. 14-4 in Mountain West play. Went to the WNIT. Lost to Oregon State. I don't know if that's the semifinals or the third round. But yeah, this is a good squad that's coming into Cedar City to open up this WAC era for the SUU women's basketball. So that'll be a game to keep an eye on. Any other women's games that we haven't mentioned? UTSA at Stephen F. Austin. That should be a good one. I'm interested to see how the Lady Jacks play without Zaya Nugent. That is my big question mark. How are they going to respond? We know on social media and the talking with Mark Kellogg, they're going to miss her, but they're not going to miss her, if that makes sense, because she's still going to be right there as a coach. What do you guys think?
Well, I know when I voted for the media poll, that was a big part of SFA falling for me. Maybe a little bit of bias too for me putting GCU at 1, but I think that she is a very big part of their team, and I think that they might feel confident without her, but I'm really not sure. I think it ends up being, missing a very big piece of the puzzle for that offense. And I was expecting her to maybe play a lot of starting point guard, really running the offense this year. And without her, I don't know what that offense looks like. So it's really going to be telling of their first couple games to see how they look without her on the court, because I feel like she's just such a vital part of that team. But like you said, she'll be on the sidelines and everything, and that's great, but she's not playing. She's not on the court. That's the real story there, and I think maybe a lot of SFA fans won't love that I'm saying that, but I don't know. I think that they're definitely still contenders, but I think that they're not as certain contenders as they were before her injury.
Yeah, I agree. Point guard position is the most important position on the floor. Let's be real. And, she played off the ball a little bit last year. I think she was going to have the ball in her hands a little bit more this year. So, yeah, I'm very interested to see that. And, that game's part of a doubleheader at Johnson Coliseum in Nacogdoches tomorrow night. UTSA coming off a 7-win season, 7-23 last year. 3-14 in Conference USA. So we'll see if they've improved. SFA is still really good. Markel has got Ayanna Johnson, Avery Brittingham, among others, and they should be really good as well. So it should be a win for the Lady Jacks. But that's the story, is how do they perform without their WAC tournament MVP, taking the floor with them. We're going to finish up with my favorite game of the night. I know that, CBU fans are all about that Long Beach State game. GCU fans, Montana State. We got the women's games out of the way. Now it's time for me to talk about my game that I will be at in person in the D. Glenn Smith Spectrum in Logan. Utah Valley at Utah State. The Wolverines have lost 13 straight games to the Aggies. Never beat them in program history. Along with CBU, it's one of the few in-state games on the slate tomorrow to open the season. You guys, I am so anxious to get to Logan tomorrow night. Like, it is. I told my wife I was going to leave at like 1:30. She's like, "What are you going to do for 6 hours tomorrow night?" It's like, it's a 2-hour drive. I'm just going to get there a little early. But I'm so excited. Like, you have no idea. Talking to people at Utah Valley, knowing what they have coming back, knowing what Utah State has. And they got Dan Hawken up there at Utah State, Daryl, who was at CBU last year. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Guys, what a way to start. An in-state game. CBU's doing it too. I mean, I could go on and on about this game, but you know what, Chelsea and Daryl, I am stoked that the 2022-23 basketball season is here, and I'm sure you guys are both feeling the exact same way.
Oh yeah, we're excited here in Riverside. I mean, I can't believe opening day is here. It seems, you're right. It seems like it was just yesterday we started previews. Like yesterday, I covered 2 CIF high school volleyball finals, and now Monday is opening night. I mean, I wouldn't even want to look at my word count for the last week and a half, but it's got to be about 2,000 words already.
Yeah, I've gone to a soccer match, I've gone to a volleyball match, and I've actually streamed soccer matches on ESPN Plus, trying to fill in the time right now. I watched the entire Utah Valley New Mexico State Women's Soccer Championship match today. Congrats to the Aggies on that win. They leave the WAC as the WAC champions. What a way to go out. And it's their first WAC championship. I should say not just WAC champion, first women's soccer championship in program history. That's awesome. I'm sorry. That's awesome. But Chelsea, what are your thoughts? I mean, you get to call the game tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what I was going to say. I think that's what I'm most excited about is getting back in the booth for women's basketball. I've been calling men's and women's soccer, mostly women's soccer, for the last month or so, and that's great. I love soccer, but at the end of the day, basketball is my absolute favorite sport, and I love me some Lopes basketball and love WAC basketball. So I'm very excited to get back in the booth with Jim and maybe Barry and maybe Michael Potter. I love those guys, and I am very lucky to be able to do that, and it starts tomorrow. I did the exhibition too, but it really starts tomorrow, and I'm expecting a lot of Havocs at the arena to probably go to both. I imagine there'll be plenty of people that do that. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what the Lopes have in store and what the rest of the WAC has in store for them.
Absolutely. Daryl, you enjoy those CBU games tomorrow night. And everybody, remember to follow these two. I'm going to pull up their Twitter accounts because I don't have them saved. I'm sorry. We're just in a group message all together. So I'm going to pull them up right now. Follow Daryl at Daryl, DERRYL_golfer. And follow Chelsea at Chelsea_mend, MEND, for GCU coverage, CBU coverage, WAC Hoops coverage, whatever you want. They've been helping me out all summer long. We've been bringing content, previews, podcasts, you name it. We've been doing it. The brand continues to grow. The WAC continues to grow and get better. And it's going to be a fun night of WAC Hoops to open the 2022-23 season. Stay tuned with us. We'll have more episodes each week, almost daily, possibly, with recaps, with previews, with thoughts on games, possibly with coaches talking about games and so forth. We're going to bring it all to you on WAC Hoops Digest on the Straight Outta WAC podcast. Remember, get your gear at the link in the description. Support the brand. As you see, the hat, Chelsea's shirt, Daryl's got a shirt, I've got a shirt. Oh, it's just getting better. Just getting better. Everybody, enjoy opening night of the 2022-23 season, and we will see you on the next episode of the Straight Outta WAC podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Straight Outta WAC podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember to follow us on Twitter at WAC Hoops Digest and Facebook under WAC Hoops Digest for all your WAC Hoops news and information.